Alright, so today I'm going to be skinning, fleshing, and stretching this coon. So the first thing I did was put the tail in the vise so you can start making your leg cuts. So I'm going to start off with my knife, go from the heel to the heel, straight across, make a straight across cut. Alright, so after you made that cut, you're going to come from the cut you just made, right in the center, go straight up through the tail. Alright, so I'll show you what those cuts look like. So I just went straight across from leg to leg, and then I went straight up through the tail. So now we're just going to start by working this hide around and disconnect it from the feet and legs. So I'm going to take my skinning knife here. And just start working it around. Go from underneath now. Now you'll just be able to stick your finger through, pull down, take your knife, put it underneath the fur, and just cut straight up like that. I'll do that same thing to this side. This is the coon I caught yesterday. I was pulling my traps. I caught him in a pipe set. Alright, so now I'll just pull this one off. Cut this again. Now after we got that, you're going to start wanting to work around the tailbone here. So you can get your fingers underneath it so that you can strip the tailbone out of the tail. Just be careful here so you don't cut through the tail. Alright, so we got that tailbone all pulled out. So before I take them out of the vise, you're going to take your knife, go underneath the tenon, make a slice. So after you strip the tail, you can hang it right on the gambrel. So do that same thing to this side. So now what I'll do is I'll take the tail out of the vise. I'm going to move the vise. I'm going to take my tail stripper, just notched a piece of steel, and put it in the vise to strip this tail. So I'll just set the bone right in the tail stripper like that. You can see right here that there's a little bit of fat that's kind of attached to here, so you want to work that a little bit. Get that cut a little bit. So now I'll just do is grab the legs with one hand, grab your other hand, put it underneath the tailbone, and just pull it right off. So now when you get to this point, I'm going to hang them up in the gambrel, and we'll show you how to finish skinning this thing out. Alright, so I got this coon hanged up on the gambrel. So what I'm going to do is I got just an old towel here. It'll help you pull down this hide since the fat is really greasy. I'll just start by working from behind, slicing that membrane a little bit. I'll come to the front, start working it. go around a little bit, all the way around, get started. Now when I get to that point, I'll just take the hide and just pull it down. Alright, so I got that pulled down. Now we're going to start by working these legs. So what I do when I get to the front legs is I got this steel rod that I'll just stick right through underneath the leg in between this hide. Stick it through just like that and just push down. And then you can just pull it the rest of the way out by hand. The same thing on this side. And that just makes it a lot easier than trying to stick your fingers through, especially if you have to do a few coon. So now I pull it down to the front paw joint here, and what you'll want to do is cut about right in front of where the toes are underneath the hide. So just cut it off there. The same thing on this side. So now we'll start skinning out the head. So grab my rag again so I can hold on to the hide. And just start working it around down to the ears. You'll get to the ears first. Work it all the way around evenly so he skins out nicely. Alright, so I'm getting to the ears here. You'll notice the ears because there's a bump where they are, and what you want to do is just make sure you cut them up high enough so you don't have a big opening on the ear. And that's perfect like that. Do the same thing on this side. Now you got the ears cut. So all you do is just keep working it down. You'll come to the eyes next. Alright, so you'll see when you get to the eyes that two sides of the skin are holding, and that's where the eyes will be. So now what you want to do is basically just cut straight down. If you want to, you can slightly angle it back towards the body because you don't want to big eye it or it won't look too good. So just start working on both eyes. And then those two eyes are skun out perfectly. So now you'll get to this point where you can see the teeth, the jaw's open. So now you can do is just cut off the bottom jaw. You don't need the bottom jaw on a coon. And I'll just pull it down to the nose. When you get to the nose, you'll just cut it straight off. So that coon is completely all skun out. We'll start by fleshing them, and then we'll put them on the board. Alright, so I got the coon put on the beam. I'm going to be fleshing them with a necker. So the first thing what you're going to want to do is start up here where you got some cheek meat. You want to start with your sharp edge. If you work it down a little ways, then you can go back to your dull edge and scrape it the rest of the way down. So I got 1 foot up. That's how I start my coon. I'll do this side and I'll flip it over, have the other foot up. So first I'll just start by shaving this cheek meat off. And you only have to work from the ears down. You don't have to do the face because that has no value. So I'll just keep with the sharp edge. Just be careful so you don't cut into them. Now I can go back to my dull edge. Start by scraping this down. And when you got everything above the foot, move it up, stick that foot right in the end of your beam. Now hold your work down really solid. And you can just start by scraping it again with your dowel edge. I just have a bin where I drop all my fat and meat that I flush off of them. Alright, so that's pretty good. Then I'll work up here a little bit more. Alright, so now I'm going to flip them over. Have the other foot sticking up. I'll go back to my sharp edge and just work on these cheeks again. When you're using the sharp side of your flushing knife, you want to keep it fairly flat. So if you keep it up like this, you're going to cut into it. You don't want to do that. Now I should be able to go to my dull edge. I'll bring it back up to the front foot, stick that into the end of my beam. Just start working this again with the dull edge. Scrape it all down. Just make sure you get everything off because you don't want this thing to slip on you or rot. Just make sure you get all the fat off and all the meat. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I'll do is flip it over and do the belly. You really shouldn't have to do anything to the belly if you do one side of the leg, because unless it's a big coon. So I'll just go to the back. I'm going to wipe down my beam here because I got a little bit of fat on here. So you don't want to get that on the fur. The back's the hardest part. You'll have to use your sharp side of your knife most of it. But make sure you keep the tail off the side because you don't want to scrape all the fat onto that. So just start from below the ears and go down. Just using my sharp edge. When you get work down, you can try scraping a little bit. This one's scraping off fairly easy. This isn't too big of a coon, so it shouldn't be too tough. So now just keep the tail off the side and work this down. Make sure you get all this fat off. Still a little wet. You can probably see some of the water running off of them. let them dry or shake them off a bit before I get them on the board. Put the tail on the other side so you can do the other side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this tail. You don't need a tail stripper. I just take my knife, put it in there, and you can just cut all the way down. No need to have a tail stripper. This strips it nicely. Just make sure you go all the way to the end of the tail. So now I'll start flushing out the tail a little bit. Got a little bit of fat on this blade I'm going to wipe off. Alright, so just scrape that down. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. Looks like we gotta wipe this beam back down. Looks like we got a little bit left on the up towards the top of the back. I should get it off. Just a little bit here. Just start off with your dull edge. If it doesn't come off, since I got a little bit here it's not coming off, just go to your sharp edge, scrape it off. Just make sure you get everything off. So you don't want this hide to rot. Alright, so now I'll just take them off the beam. Take a look at them, make sure you got all the fat off. The side looks pretty good. So now what I'll do is I'm going to turn them inside out, dry them off a little bit, comb them out, and then we'll put them onto the beam. Alright, so now I'm going to be putting this coon on the board. I shook them out a little bit, combed them up. It looks pretty nice. So I'll turn them back inside out. Now I'll just slip them onto this board here. I'm using a wood board. That's what I do with all my coons. I just think they're better than wire, especially for a coon. So now I got them centered on the board. I'm looking at the belly side. That's the side I'm going to start pinning. I just got these aluminum pins. So I'm going to pull them down. I'm going to pin each corner here, each flap. Alright, now that I got those pinned, I'm going to flip it over for now. Pull this down, make sure it's nice and centered. And I'm going to start by pinning these out. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a pin on this flap closest to the tail. Stretch it down. I'll put another pin on the end, put it in line, so you'll cut off this flap, so you got a nice straight line here. Now I'll put one in the middle. I'll just take my knife, cut this nice and straight. Do the same to the other side. Pull this flap around. put 3 pins in it. Cut this flap off nice and straight. Alright, so I'll show you up closer what I did there. So I got 3 pins on each side. I cut them off nice and straight. Then you can start pinning out the tail. On the belly side, I got 2 pins there. So now you can cut this extra off, make a nice window here. You want to cut these legs off a little bit, and then we'll finish pinning off that tail. Alright, so the nose fell off. I'll put that back on the stretcher here. I'll make sure that stays on. Since you already cut the bottom lip off, you won't have to do that now. But for making this window, I'll just grab the top of the fur up here. I'll cut just a little bit up. And I'll just start cutting around down to that pin. I'll go around the other side. Alright, so now you got a nice window there. I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to pin out the tail. Tail takes quite a few pins, so make sure you got quite a few, especially a few coon you got to stretch out. So I'll just start pinning each side. You don't need to pull this tail too tight. I'll just put a pin on each side about every inch or so down, just to make sure this tail gets pinned out nice, so when it dries it'll be nicely flat. You see a little bit of piece of fat, just cut it off. I had a little piece on the tail there. Almost done with this tail. A few more pins. Make sure you put one in the end of the tail so it doesn't fold over. Alright, so you have your tail nicely pinned out. Now I'm going to flip them over. I'm going to cut these feet a little bit because they're a little long. You want them hanging out maybe about an inch or so. So just trim these a little bit, not too much. Do it on both sides. Tuck this fur in a little bit if you want. Alright, so that's completely on the board. So lastly what I do is I take just an old big dull knife, just run it down the hide, I'll take off any excess fat you got. Do that on both sides. If you see you got a little bit of piece of fat that you miss when you're fleshing, you just take your knife, just use it like you're fleshing them. I hold it, I go straight on with the fur and I'll just scrape at it. And I'll scrape the fat right off. So lastly, what I'm going to take is, I got a little board here, a little wedge, put under the belly. Just make it easier when you have to take it off the stretcher. So now, that coon is all ready, all done. I'll hang them upside down, nose down, so if you have any fat, it'll drip down to the nose and it won't drip down into the tail. Just let this sit for maybe a week, 4 days, maybe a week. Depends on how hot it is out. And then this is ready to sell to your local buyer or send to auction. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe.